Okay, that didn't work out. So going to be making a new PC today. It has been a while since I did this. So 2012 was when I built this computer. It's an i5-3570K. It's a good machine. However, it's a bit slow these days. So I thought I'd bring you along for the ride. We won't be doing the whole process because I know it could be quite boring when I get carried away with stuff. But let's have a look at my old machine, which is that guy just there. And then we'll jump into the new parts. I think I got this machine in the box for this in about 2004, maybe 2003, and originally had an Athlon XP. Then I got an E83000 Intel, and now it's a 3570K i5. Not overclocked, but it's got a fancy cooler in there, and there's a GTX 970, which is a graphics card, 16 gig of RAM. In total about 3 terabytes of storage inside the box. So it's really good and works great for editing 4K video, but it does it a bit slowly, that's all. So let's have a look at the other parts. So this looks entirely too legit, doesn't it, right now? Certainly too legit for my channel. Anyway, I saved for a couple of years to buy this computer, so I'm really excited about it. Anyway, we've got here the Fractal design, it's a difficult one to say, Define C case. Big case, got USB 3 on the front at the top, lots of space inside. Comes with a couple of fans that are fairly quiet. So the whole PC should be pretty quiet, or at least a lot quieter than my previous machine. I got an extra fan to go along with it so that I can push a bit more air onto my GPU, which is this one here. It's the GTX 970 Zotac graphics card. Now, I can't afford at the moment to replace this, so I'm going to be running with that for a couple more years, I think. Next to that, I've got this AVerMedia HDMI capture card, really useful bit of kit. I got it cheap on eBay, so someone's dream of being a streamer didn't work out and they sold it, I guess. Anyway, it's really fun to use, and it works really well if I want to use the GUI environment in a Raspberry Pi, because I can just plug it into my computer and view it in a window. Onto storage, I've got a lot of different storage options here. I've got a 1 terabyte Western Digital green drive. I've got a 4 terabyte Seagate Barracuda drive. This one's new. This one came out of my old machine, the old 1 terabyte. I've got several, how many is there? 5 different solid state storage devices. So starting at the most expensive, I guess, is the Samsung 970 Evo, which is an NVMe drive, an M.2 drive. These run on the PCI Express bus, and so they are very quick. So that's going to be my boot drive. I don't know if there's going to be a huge amount of difference between it being the boot drive or not, or just using one of these, like a Crucial solid state drive, 2.5 inch drive. Again, that one's 250 gig. They're all fairly low. I've not gone for a high capacity because they're very expensive. Then there is a Samsung 850 Evo 250 gig SSD that came out of my old machine. I've also got this SanDisk. It's only 120 gig, this SSD. I think I bought this to speed up my boot drive on the previous machine, and then realized it was too small. So I might be doing some dual boot Linux stuff if I don't just use a virtual machine, we'll see. Or I might use this to keep the virtual machines on. And then I have another NVMe drive. Now, I'm doing this because it works well with the Premiere Pro, which is what I edit video on. It works quite well with that workflow, having your project files on an NVMe drive. So they're going to go on there. It doesn't need to be super fast. It is faster than a normal 2.5 inch SSD, so hopefully it works. I've also got a couple of external storage drives. Now these are 2 terabyte USB 3 drives, and I use those for backup. So I've got stuff stored on these drives, and then I create a backup copy and put them on here. And then they go in another room in the house. Not perfect, but it's better than nothing. We've got it's a Gigabyte one, I think, isn't it? Yeah, Gigabyte AORUS Gaming Ultra Gaming X470. Now, I don't give two hoots about the gaming part. However, it does have a lot of the things I really want on here. So we've got the X470 platform. Now this is the one that takes advantage of the new processor, which is a Ryzen 7 2700X. You can see it there in this little window. It's a big old beefy box. Now, I could have gone for an Intel chip, and I did think about it. The 8700 was around. I wasn't going to go for the K version because, I mean, my old processor was a 3570K, and I never overclocked it. My machine just wasn't, I'd have to upgrade my power supply. I bought a new cooler, but it wasn't really as good as it could be. So anyway, I don't intend to really overclock. So I was looking at the i8700, but the price was just too high. So I decided against it, and I thought I'll go with this one. It's got more cores. This is an 8-core processor, and hopefully in the future, software that I use now will take advantage of more cores in the future. They don't at the moment, but it's still a fast processor, so I'm fine with that. Anyway, this motherboard will accept that without any kind of BIOS updates or anything like that. It's the AM4 socket. This has also got all sorts of stuff. PCIe, it's got 2 M.2 slots, which is why I bought 2 of these. It's USB super speed, the 3.1 thing, all sorts really. And there's Type C on the back as well. Type C port for faster stuff, I don't really know. Anyway, over here I've gone for the Pure Power 10 by Be Quiet, because I want the machine to be fairly quiet. I mean, when the graphics card is running at full speed, it's like a jet engine, so it's not going to be super quiet, but in idle, it will be very quiet. Or when just doing normal things like streaming or something like that, I want it to be fairly silent. Now, some of these things will be a bit controversial. I think some people may have some things to say about my choices here. However, I did a lot of research, and these seem to be the things that fit for me. So in my old machine, I had 8 gigabytes of RAM originally, and then I upgraded to 16 gigabytes of RAM. And that kept my machine going for a couple more years while I saved up for a new one. But RAM prices are extreme, or they seem it. So I wasn't able to afford 32 gigabytes of RAM like I kind of wanted. So I've gone for 16 gigabytes of 300, or well, it's 3 giga, I was going to say 3000, but I messed up. 3 gig memory. So it's 16 gigabytes of 3000 megahertz speed memory. This is the Corsair Vengeance LPX. It's low profile, so hopefully it won't get in the way of a cooler or anything like that. I went for 16 gig because it seems to work fine for me video editing. 32 would have been much better, but you have to go with fast memory for these Ryzen CPUs. So I've gone with the 3000. So that's it, I think. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. So I'm going to get started and build the darn thing. So I'm just sorting out my storage situation, so I'm screwing in these drives. It's got a really interesting way of holding these. Let me show you. So this gap up here is where these drives mount. So that's, first off, that's great. They mount up here, but I couldn't figure out what to do with the mechanical drives. And then I took off the back panel and found that they have these awesome metal trays where they just sort of slide in. But not only that, but each one of these drive trays have these sort of very soft rubber grommets, maybe you'd call them, around the screws. So this whole drive is sitting on rubber. So it's going to eliminate or reduce the vibration that comes through this tray from the mechanical hard drive. So that's really cool. I've got, my old computer's got a lot of noise coming from these hard drives. So looking forward to having that reduced. So this is our power supply. I'm fairly intrigued by this because it's sort of it's called semi-modular, which means some of the cables are plugged in, some aren't, but you've got the main ones that are connected all the time, and then you can choose which ones you need. Now my previous power supply was a Corsair CX500, I think, which is basically more than enough for most systems, I think, but we've got all these modular. I love the idea that these are modular, which means there's going to be less cabling in the case itself, which should lead to better airflow. But this case has a way of routing cables around the back, so actually it should be pretty good anyhow, even if it wasn't modular. So there you go. You can see we've got cables already coming off this power supply. You've got the main motherboard one here, which is what is that, 12 pin? I can't count, 24 pin perhaps. And then these are the PCI, oh no, CPU 1 and 2. I don't know what those are for. I've never seen them on a motherboard, but yeah, there we go. So we've got some for drives. I'm not sure why they would be specifically for drives, but also PCIe 1 and PCIe 2. So it's not really as modular as I thought it was. God, it looks fairly beautiful on the inside actually. I'm just installing a second cooling fan in here. I've done some of these things out of order. Doesn't really matter, but I've noticed they're still using these screws that bite into the plastic. They're just really gnarly things, and they're very, very difficult to get in. If any of you have done these fans before, you'll know that you can basically ruin it if you're not careful. Why have they not gone to the trouble of putting an insert in there so that you can screw these things in easily and take them out? I mean, once you've screwed one of these in, it's pretty much matched to that screw. Right, it's now time to install the motherboard. What I shouldn't have done is everything up to now. I should have just done the motherboard first. However, this is where we're at, so I'm going to do the motherboard now. So this is it. This is the motherboard. It's pretty fancy looking. You can hear something shaking. It's the M.2 protector there. Let's we'll take that out in a second. Let's figure out which way around this goes. Like that. Okay. Just drop it in there for now. Right, let's try and line it up. Do we need to use standoffs here? We might need to. So we get these motherboard standoffs. We'll figure out where on here we need to put them. Well, that was fairly successful, sort of. It came with a really interesting attachment actually for the motherboard standoffs, and it's essentially like this little hex bit, and on the other side is something you stick a screwdriver into, so you can put those standoffs in and then screw them down, which is really great. So now I've got to screw this motherboard in and then we're good to go. Well, good to add some more bits, I suppose. So this is a fairly exciting bit. This is the processor. So I don't think I've ever spent this much money on a processor. It was about £340, something like that. Very, very expensive. I'll put links and stuff in the description, so if you want to go and find all the stuff that I ended up buying, you can. Not that I imagine you'll want to. Oh my god, there it is. It's tiny. For such a big box at least. And this is the cooler. I'm interested in this. So I think this is a Wraith Prism cooler. So the incidentally, the Intel i7-8700 doesn't come with a cooler at all. So you have to buy your own aftermarket one. This has got heat paste pre-applied to it. That's interesting. Is that heat paste? Yes, it is. Should I go with the pre-applied stuff? I guess so. Well, we'll put that over there out of the way then. And then there's the little guy. Ryzen, AMD Ryzen 7 2700X. I'm super excited. Right, now what I'm about to show you is probably how not to install a CPU, because again, I've not done this in a very long time. There is likely some instructions, but we're just going to go for it. I'll just quickly ground myself because I'm frightened. Oh, okay. So let's have a little close-up look at that, shall we? So this CPU actually has pins. I thought they were pads these days, but this one definitely has lots and lots and lots of little pins. It's fairly mesmerizing looking in the camera. Now, is it keyed? There does seem to be a pin 1 indicator. Let's see if you can see it too. It may be that I'm getting old, but I remember installing a fan, a heatsink and fan on your CPU used to be quite difficult. This literally says, place the heatsink on the processor, place clips over the retention frame hooks and flip lever to secure the heatsink. We've already got the retention frames here, so that's it. I've literally just got to put it on. That's crazy. So we're pretty much done, I think. So I've got the coolers in place, we've got our memory installed, the M.2 drives are all in. I've cable managed some of this stuff so that we've got the power going in up here, a bit more power going in here, and then we need to bring our SATA things through. So I'm not going to show you any more of this until it is complete. So I think it's finished, finally. I've got my graphics card in there, I've got my, whatever that thing is called, the capture card, all the M.2 stuff, it's all cable managed, but I forgot something. So when I was putting this together, I was having a great time, and then I've sort of just realized I forgot to put the I/O shield on, which looks like that. So that should be on the other side of the blooming motherboard. So I've forgotten to do that. So it's gonna be without one for a little while because I want to get this powered up and an OS installed. So, oh, too low now, hang on. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'm sure this computer will feature in some other videos at some point. Lol, okay, it's not quite done, I was joking. I thought you might want to see it turn on, I also do. So I've got it hooked up, everything's plugged in. It should go to the BIOS. There's no operating system installed on any of the disks in here, so it shouldn't detect like one of those master boot record things. But let's get it turned on. Oh. Everything looks like it's on. Oh, sorry, knocked the camera there. That's the cooler for the AMD CPU. Wow, that is weird. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. I've got my monitor plugged into my graphics card. The 2700X doesn't have a integrated graphics chip, so you have to use an external graphics card. So there's no point me plugging anything into the motherboard. Like there is an HDMI port in there. So it's probably boot cycling, and then it's going to go into the BIOS. Yeah. Okay, so we can get, oh. No, I wanted it, oh, well, it's done that now. Is there a reset switch? Well, it's done. I'm happy. Hopefully you're happy. You've just put up with what, I don't know what kind of a video it's going to be. I'm going to have to set this up in order to edit it, but it's probably long and a bit boring. So yeah, thanks a lot for coming along, and I'll speak to you all soon.